The Warrior Poet Project podcast is brought to you by Onnit.com. That's ONNIT.com. Makers of Alpha Brain, which is a complete balanced nootropic designed to elevate your neurotransmitter levels for optimal focus and brain function, as well as Shroom Tech Sport, which is a cordyceps mushroom-based pre-workout formula designed to improve your oxygen utilization and your cellular energy, two important facets for the athlete. Both these supplements are two of the game day favorites of Mr. AJ Hawk himself. We also have Hemp Force, which is a delicious chocolate protein mix. It's great for your body and easy to digest, and a bunch of functional foods that are out now and launching shortly, so make sure to check back with Onnit. Also have our fitness products, kettlebells, battle ropes, and some other things coming down the pipe as well. So please go to Onnit.com, ONNIT.com, and when you check out, feel free to use code WARRIOR to save 12% on all of the Onnit-made supplements. Also like you to check out our friends across the pond at LondonReal.tv. They're putting out a great podcast, so we want to give them our support as well. And finally, if you'd like to go a little deeper into the Warrior Poet philosophy, read some blogs and poetry, or check out some of my other experiences, please go to warriorpoet.us. That's warriorpoet.us. Warrior Poet Project. All right, here we are with the Warrior Poet Project, live from Green Bay. Well, it won't be live for you. It'll be on tape delay because I have no way to stream from the frozen tundra. Actually, not so frozen right now, which has been
luckily
been good news for me, who came in December last year, which was a little bit more chilly. The cold here is significantly colder than most places you would imagine. Like a cold in a nice Colorado mountain town where you're sipping hot chocolate. It's a little different here down in Green Bay. But here with the powerful AJ Hawk, and gonna go deep. Gonna go deep inside this savage right here and see what makes him tick. So a real treat here for the Warrior Poet Project. Thanks for doing this here, AJ.
Of course, it's my first real podcast as a guest, I would say. I've done little call-in shows for people, but this is my first real sit-down. It's going to be good.
All right, I like it. Well, speaking of podcasts, that was kind of how you came to find out about myself and Onnit, right? So what is what's a guy, football player like you doing listening to the Joe Rogan Podcast to begin with? How'd that all come about?
I'm glad you. I was going to bring it up if you didn't. I don't want it to sound like a sales pitch for Onnit or whatever. I don't know but what's crazy, I think, of my kind of story about it, I'd say 2 years ago, I started listening to Joe's podcast, and I don't even know how I got turned on to it. Just found it one day. I'd never listened to a podcast in my life. Stumbled upon it. I heard all his commercials for Onnit, talking about Alpha Brain. Basically, I think Alpha Brain was the main. I think he had Shroom Tech Sport at the time, but it was the main thing he kept talking about. And I was just thinking, like, man, this sounds amazing. But the whole time I was like, man, I wish I could take it. But I figured, we have pretty strict steroid testing and everything. I knew it wasn't a steroid, but I was like, I don't know, it might have something that would make me test positive. So I kind of hung back, kept listening to the podcast, and then I just decided to shoot you guys an email one day, and got an email right back from someone at the company, I forget who now, and then got an email from you, from Aubrey, a couple days later, and we just went back and forth with it, and you sent me a bunch of product, and I actually had it tested through the NFL and everything, and everything came up good, so I've been on ever since. and now kind of, whatever you guys call it, honor roll or whatever you guys do, it's kind of a weird way to get to marketing a company. Usually as an athlete, you never, or anything, I know you have video game guys, wrestlers, UFC people. Usually you have like marketing people that go find you deals and you do stuff that you don't completely believe in. And luckily I've been in the NFL 7 years now, and I really kind of only do the things that I truly believe in. So this was one of the ones that I actually went and found myself that are completely besides no one. We all have agents in the NFL, but my agency, none of them they had nothing to do with any of this. I just talked to you directly and wanted to get on the product because I liked it and been a huge fan ever since.
That's actually one of the cool things about, the honor roll for us is that, everybody who's been on there has come from basically liking the product first and just come to it pretty organically, which has been cool. We get a lot more authenticity that way than somebody
it's
just like
super rare. I mean,
like when you see like P. Diddy promoting for proactive face care. You're like, really? Like, are you doing that? I doubt it.
Yeah, exactly.
Something like that. But everything's been real natural, and you're still. I'm not comfortable sharing the quantities that you ingest of these things because I don't want people to get ideas. But you're still, an active on it user here, and it's pretty cool to hear that it's been helping you in your sport as well in your training.
For sure, man. Yeah, every day. It's funny because I'll text you my dosages, and you'll tell me to calm it down and maybe put a disclaimer on that if I ever tell any kids about it. But I felt like I'm like 240, a little bit under 240 now, and not too big, especially for NFL standards. It's not very big, but I've always felt like I've had a weird tolerance to everything. Like basically whatever I take or whatever I would just double it basically almost. And I built my way up, through Alpha Brain and stuff. I started to see what I could handle, and I've never really had any issue with anything. I've never felt any, I know people complain if they're dizzy or it hurts their stomach.
If they go too hard in the paint on the Alpha Brain.
I've witnessed a friend have the same situation, but he also had a couple other things holding him back.
A couple other things in his system. Yeah, if for those of you listening, if you're taking Alpha Brain and it starts to feel like you've smoked a gigantic cigar or taken a dip for the first time, that means that you're, receptors are a little too overheated, so you need to back that down a little bit. It'll all pass, and it's not going to cause any lasting issues. But you can get a little too fired up on your neurotransmitter levels, and things can get out of whack a little bit. But for AJ, that threshold is a bit higher than most. And if you're wondering, also the threshold still applies for a bottle of Tito's vodka as well.
Yes,
I've seen this man put down some serious vodka, and I know some serious drinkers as well. Obviously. The great Bodie Miller is also on the honor roll.
You can't hang with that guy. No one can.
Who can also put down a little bit of vodka if he wants to, but this has been impressive in that regard, no doubt. But to go back to so what do you think? So how did you get to the Joe Rogan podcast?
Oh yeah, I kind of skipped that. I'm not sure exactly what turned me on to Joe's podcast. I think I heard him on the Opie and Anthony show. I listen to Opie and Anthony on the way into the facility all the time, and then I listen to the replay a lot on the way home to catch up what I missed. But I think Joe was a guest one time with a couple guys. Red Band might have been on there, and he mentioned his podcast. So I was like, I'll check it out. I've never listened to one, and so I started listening and became a huge fan. And then, kind of like a lot of the other people that it sounds like, through the podcast, how they talk about it, I became a straight fanboy of all the whole Death Squad team, of all those guys, all Joey those guys Diaz, so Ari, all those people. I always am checking them out, trying to find their podcast, trying to find out where they're doing stand up. And I've actually I've always been a fan of stand up, but now I've even been, it's weird, man. It's like it takes over you, and I mentioned it I don't have a whole lot of other football players listening to too many podcasts. When I ask them about podcasts, they're usually listening to watching SportsCenter or listening to football podcasts or whatever, if they even are into podcasts. But for me, it's kind of been it's an easy way to get away. I live football 15 hours a day every day, so it's nice. It's really fun, and I really enjoy it.
So what was your exposure to this? And I want to go kind of deeper into this because it's kind of like a weird. It's cool. It's great. It's a juxtaposition of, it's not, you're not the usual Joe Rogan kind of listener, the guy that arrives there that way. There's a kind of a weird thing with MMA that's happening with it too. But, how much of the kind of awareness of the, psychedelics and all the other situations that, Rogan, myself, and how much of that had you been exposed to prior to starting to listen to the Joe Rogan podcast?
None. Honestly, nothing. I've said it before. I'm not scared to drink some Tito's every once in a while, but I've never smoked anything, never done any drugs, so never been into pills or anything like that. But as you said, like your whole psychedelic world, I actually started seeing YouTube clips of Joe talking about DMT. One of my buddies actually showed that to me, and I was like, man, this is crazy to listen to him explain it. And then meeting you and hearing about your trips, to Peru and talking about ayahuasca and everything, it's just super interesting. And I've learned throughout the last couple of years, especially, that, man, it's fun to have a diverse group of friends. And I sure have a very diverse group. Every home game we have here in Green Bay, we have a different clan that comes up, and it's like everybody is just so different. Yet we're all kind of I don't know how we connect in some way, and it's been fun.
So you come from basically, it's almost like 0 to 60 going from straight football, and I guess you grew up in Ohio, went to school in Ohio. I mean, at that level, so let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, that world where you were growing up, it's pretty cut and dry. It's pretty like, football, weights,
exactly,
protein,
straight meathead.
Yeah,
and I don't deny that I'm still a bit of a meathead, but I think I'm starting to evolve a little bit, starting to open my eyes up over the last 5 or 6 years. When I was 14, 15 years old, I'm always worried about was trying to gain 20, 30 pounds of muscle a year, trying to eat everything, drinking a gallon of milk before I go to bed, and just lift weights for 4 hours a day and play football, basketball, and baseball, always playing all sports. But that was kind of my life, and I loved it, and I still love doing what I do. Playing football is awesome. I'm going to play as long as I can, but yeah, I'm starting to see there's a lot of other things out there as well.
How do you think, first of all, do you think there's going to be more of that awareness spreading into like all realms? Like you have a pretty diverse group of people on your team as well. There's so there's the guys like yourself, kind of Midwest. I don't know if Ohio's classified as Midwest, but Midwest, kind of that country boy kind of demographic who's it's trickling into some kind of awareness for this. And then there's like the kind of inner city kind of hood kind of element, those other players. Do you think is any awareness kind of creeping into that category as well? Like how much is it permeating, do you think? If you went back to Ohio, how many people playing football in high school now or college at Ohio State are starting to it doesn't have to be the Joe Rogan Podcast, but just kind of the awareness of things outside of what the government box tries to place on us.
I mean, I think it's slow moving, probably a little slower moving in Ohio than it would be, obviously, on the West Coast, but I think it's getting there. I think just me, being aware of it, you kind of open your eyes and you're out there and you find people that are kind of searching for the same type of thing you are. Like you've met, one of my best friends, Doug, from college. We'll text each other asking about, did you hear about, Victor Conti was on Joe's podcast, or we'll talk about something Joey Diaz said or some clips we saw and just things like that. So I think it definitely is spreading because you will see, and now I think with technology, I'm sure there's fifth graders now with phones and on the internet and all that. That wasn't happening really when I was, I didn't get a phone till my freshman year in college, I guess. So I was kind of stuck in the dark. I didn't really use the internet. I'd send the emails every once in a while, but now it's like you can find anything you want instantly, and I think that right there is helping people even from a young age, kind of open up and see that there's, like you said, there is a little bit more than just the weight room, but you still need that. That's that foundation. I'll never turn my back on that. That was my high school coaches and everybody. They made me who I am, but yeah, it's fun to have that foundation for sure.
Well, that's always been my philosophy. The whole warrior poet concept is the balancing of two elements. It's the guy that can kill it in the weight room, kill it on the field, but then also, go travel beyond the realms of consciousness or write a poem or do something, intellectually superior. And that's something that I think we've lost. There used to be those kind of warrior poets of the past, but it's rare in this day and age. So I think really the complete man or complete person, could be woman as well, has both of those elements and strengths. So, I think it's the direction that it needs to go, because one without the other is just not quite getting everything that you could out of this existence.
For sure. And I think I've always tried to be like, I say, what do you believe or what do you think? I think being in the NFL in this fantasy world that we're at, which is awesome, I love it. But it's true that it's easy to not be authentic and get caught up in all the hype. And, everyone's seen that. Someone that has a big time job or someone's getting a lot of attention or whatever, they might forget about it and think that's, what they are, and then all of a sudden, bam, you could, break your leg, season over, you're out for the year. And I've seen a lot of guys struggle with that. I don't want I know when football's over, it's going to be a transition, no matter what age you are, whether you after high school, whatever it is. I know people have sometimes a rocky transition into whatever normal life you can call it, and I'm trying to think about that now and be as balanced and have things set up for the future. So when my day does come, I'll be ready, and I'm gonna thrive, in retirement from football, and not be one of the statistics, because I think a lot of people see it. There's like 78% of guys when they're 5 years removed from the league are bankrupt and divorced, stuff like that. And I might have the numbers a little bit wrong, but it's pretty close.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much in most things. Professional sports is probably a hyper example because you make so much money so fast, and all you're doing is still playing sports. And so it's not
and spending it so fast too.
Yeah.
So that happens.
And then it comes to a weird. No other enterprise do you have that comes to such a drastic and finite end. It's like, oh nope, no more money now. Now the money's totally gone.
Yeah, it's literally like if you look at T.O., he's had he made a bunch of money for a lot of years, was an unbelievable player, and then I think he's had some issues with his kids where the moms of the kids are looking for child support, and he basically has to show, listen, I might have been making $10 million a couple of years ago, but I literally have no income right now.
Yeah,
it's true, and that's a big deal, that I'm preparing for now, not only with money but everything in my life.
It seems like someone like T.O. could really. And Joe talks about it a lot with the isolation tank and with the psychedelic experience. And I think one of the best things about it is that it's able to show a true mirror to yourself, and you really get to look at yourself without any self-delusion,
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I don't know T.O., and I can't comment on him specifically, but I know in general, it seems like it's easy to get inflated in a sport like football or basketball or any of these, because everybody's constantly pumping your tires, and you're pumping your own tires,
Yeah.
And I think to not ever be able to actually have an untainted view of like who you really are and what's going on, I can only imagine that would help them not only be happier, but even be a better football player, like cut out the bullshit and just be like, This is who I am. I really, truly know it. Mm-hmm. And we can go. I mean, yourself, you're a very grounded individual, and I think that's one really unique thing about you. So on the scale of people who I would recommend doing some journey work to, you're on the really kind of low side of it. I mean, it's not like you're pretending to be something different. You're really down to earth, humble. But that kind of self-reflection is crucial. And you can get it without any drugs. I mean, the psychedelic experience isn't about doing drugs. You can do it in an isolation tank. You can do it on a long hike. You could go to a fucking cave and fast for 3 days with just water. And eventually, that same experience, you'll get there one way or another. It's just a lot more fireworks when you take a couple cups of ayahuasca and listen to the dragon whistle in your ear.
That's why
as a flotilla of snakes suck smoke out of your body and a metallic ship beams light under your tongue.
That's why we invite you to Green Bay, man, so you can tell us your stories. And we can. You sat in our kitchen last year with who we have, Doug and his wife, couple. His in-laws, remember? I don't know if you remember that. And we just sat there mesmerized listening to your story about in Peru. Just listen to it, ask you a million questions, like little kids. So it's fun for us. It's fun it's such a different world than anything I've ever been brought up in, or even any of my other friends. They don't know any of this, and so it's cool. It's a fun thing to at least look at, and whether I don't. As of now, I don't plan on ever doing it, but like I said, I think
We'll see about that, AJ. We'll wait till you finish playing football. We'll see about that. You might find your way on a detour to Peru.
I like that.
AJ, drink this cup here real quick.
You bring me over a cup of Starbucks.
Although you would need probably 4 cups. Like if the shaman, if we get AJ, I'm gonna have a private session set up with the dragon. I'll be like, Dragon, listen, you just put the whole bottle in front of him, and he's gonna drink till weird shit happens. I'll tell you when to stop. Just keep feeding him till weird shit happens. This man has an unusual tolerance. Because you would take 2 cups and just grin at him. Like, what do you got?
I don't know. It sounds kind of scary. Your whole deal. I've read your when you wrote about it too. I don't know. It doesn't. It sounds. It sounds cool, but also the puking and losing 10 pounds.
Yeah, it's just, whatever.
Hopefully the reward is worth all that.
It's like, you gotta sweat when you work out.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
I'm okay with that.
It's
as long as it's worth it, then I'm fine.
It's totally worth it. It's part of what makes you feel good. Now, the iboga, on the other hand, that one is the most valuable, but the most intense. I mean, you got to really commit to 3 days of a lot of physical pain to make that happen. The combo, the frog medicine, I've been talking to some people who've been doing that.
What's that?
Which is basically they take a frog and they crucify it to a certain degree on these sticks, and they irritate the fuck out of it till toxins come out of it. And then they take the toxins on a stick and they burn you or cut you. And then they rub the toxins into your burn or your cut. And it's supposedly really intense, like you get really nauseous, really dizzy, like really fucked up. But they use it for hunting, because after it's over, you have like this unlimited energy and ability to like sense animals in the forest. And it's really, there's some harsh ones that they get down there, and iboga is certainly on that tip. But ayahuasca,
so what
when it hits you right, is magic. I'm doing it all, man.
After they put the frog toxins in you, what are you going to go
kill
a deer with your bare hands?
Like chase down a wild boar and figure it out.
Strangle it.
No, I guess, probably, it's big in Suriname, and I have some contacts down in Suriname.
Probably win a marathon, man, after that.
Yeah, apparently you have incredible endurance, and your immune system gets extremely heightened for some reason. I don't know, I have to verify that aspect of it, but it seems like an interesting one. But the ayahuasca, I think, is, now one of the things about ayahuasca, too, is it's the combination of a leaf that contains DMT and a vine that's an MAOI. And the leaves have different concentrations of DMT depending on season, depending on time of year. So sometimes the ayahuasca doesn't have a high DMT content, in which case you won't see the fireworks. And I think that was part of what happened down in Peru last time. I went with Bodhi last time. And it just didn't have the kind of overwhelming visual stimulus that you normally get from a DMT sensation. I was able to, after I drank a couple cups, I had a pretty cool adventure with a dragon and a bear and an eagle, and it was pretty cool. But it wasn't like the first time. But yeah, I think that would be a good place to start. It's a bummer. I really don't recommend. I can't wholeheartedly recommend doing illegal things just because of the risk that's involved. But fortunately, we can go places where things are illegal. But I've been able to have these habitual dreams recently, where I'm smoking DMT.
In a dream.
Yeah, it's because it's illegal to do it when I'm awake, but I do it in my dreams. You know what I mean? So, and that's been really interesting too, because these dreams last only like 45 minutes. So like start when you smoke it. The shamans are kind of usually not too hot on it, and the reason why when you're smoking DMT is you're going so fast, like a rush into this portal, like trans-dimensional travel, like lightning speed. I mean, from the onset, from when you smoke it and you take a hit, to where you start to see the chrysanthemum, which is this, kaleidoscope of colors and buzzing atoms and things colliding together, and light and colors like you've never seen before in your life, to then, seeing these images and shapes. It's like 20 seconds, And then when you come out of it, you come out in a hurry too. So you can be processing some really deep material and just be kind of yanked out of it. So it's kind of like a veteran, I don't know, I think it's kind of like a veteran way to experience the DMT experience. Mm-hmm. But one of the, last dreams that I had was actually one of the most powerful ones I had. And one thing I do like about it is it allows you to kind of get, let's say you're working and you're out, you don't have a lot of time, and ayahuasca is going to take 8 hours minimum, and then a day of recovery and 3 days of preparation. Jeez. This, you can kind of do it, the whole thing will take 30 minutes, and it's almost like a long meditation session that allows you to see some cool stuff. This last time, I saw a giant, like, foo dog looking lion that came. So first of all, the chrysanthemum and everything was, was pretty wild colors, but this thing, and it came and it attached itself to my chest and my throat. And it was this like being of light, and it had light in its jaws, and it sunk its teeth like into my throat and into my chest. And I could feel it just like, I don't know, it sounds cheesy because you always, light and energy, but that's what it was. It was like white light and energy from my throat to my belly button, from where its jaws were. And it was like pushing it into my body. And then it was the craziest feeling I've ever had. The only other time I've ever felt anything like that was during that ayahuasca trip that I talked about on Joe Rogan 127, where I was, there was the flotillas that sucked the smoke out of me and beamed some light underneath my tongue. And it was such a just cleansing, powerful feeling, after that, even though the whole experience only lasted 20 minutes and it kind of like moved down the rest of my body, it was like I was, grounded, reset, cleansed, purified, and like back to full, I could have gone back and continued working or doing whatever. Like in 1 hour's time period, I went all the way back over, felt like I had a visitation from a being, like a strange ancient being.
Yeah.
And then came back to reality, and you're like fully back. There's no like,
no hangover,
no nothing. You just feel good and relaxed and
what's
more kind of awareness.
Is it always animals you're seeing?
It's not always. I mean, the first ayahuasca trip was a giant metal ship, that I saw in a flotilla. It can be a variety of different things. Who knows? I mean, you say beings, but it's almost like archetypes. But anyways, there's a lot of ways to get there, and I think, I think for people who are, I think ayahuasca is the way to go, the way to experience the DMT experience. I've also down in South America, I haven't talked about this, but I've also snuffed it, where you snort it, and that was very non-visual. I was like very kind of emotional. I had a lot of emotional content,
really?
Like reliving, early family issues and kind of working shit out like that. But for you, I think the full bottle, like Tito's size ayahuasca, and we'll fucking see where that comes from, man. see where we can go. But we got a couple years. We'll let you finish playing football before we take you on a trip. I was joking around that you'd come back from it like 160, wearing robes and sandals,
yeah,
and just giving long hugs, giving that spiritual extra long hug. That's just like 3 seconds too long. No matter how spiritual I may think I am, I still am not down with the overlong hug. The overlong hug, there's a certain amount of embracing time.
Just try it, man.
No, man.
It might catch on.
I mean, I do it.
It might catch on.
I'm in circles where the overlong hug is popular and common, and I'll do it.
Oh.
And then, you align your right cheek to right cheek, because that's I forget the other way, because that opens up your heart chakra.
I've never heard that one.
Yeah, I don't know. It gets weird, man.
What if you go wrong? You both go, and then you end up kissing the dude. What happens then?
No, that doesn't happen.
Oh, okay.
That's different circles.
I don't know.
Yeah, those are different circles.
I don't know your circles. I'm sure you have plenty of friends down there in Austin.
Yeah, it's true. Sometimes those circles collide, and that's what makes it kind of a little creepy. Sometimes, what was it? I guess it was Joe Rogan was talking with Alex Gray, and he was talking about John Lilly. And John Lilly was, he was the one who did the ketamine experiments in the flotation tanks. And he said, Joe Rogan, he channeled in and like went in his own tank to kind of help his friend out who was in another tank. And Joe was like, how did he do that? What do you have to give up? And Alex Gray was like, he gave up his sex. Did you hear that?
No.
Like he had to sacrifice his gender in order to be able to have those spiritual powers.
Wow.
But I'm not down with that. I don't think that's quite necessary. As I said before, I think
I've never been in the tank. Now I'm scared of the tank. The flotation tank.
Yeah, it can be powerful. But yeah, like I've always said, I mean, it's all about the balance. You got to have both elements. I don't really fully trust anyone, that couldn't, run, hunt, fight, and if my shaman couldn't do those things, I would, or at least maybe they're too old to do it now, but at least they couldn't in their prime or wouldn't. Point. I don't think they're really kind of complete. They're not like that balanced person. So, and I've always also talked about the two types of energies as well. And that's one thing I wanted to chat with you about is, playing sports like this, there's no more war where we're, personal war where we have like a sword and a shield and we get fucking pumped up and we charge.
No,
and we get
I know you're still upset about that.
Yeah, it does bother me. Although, I mean, how horrifying and exhilarating it would be at the same time. Obviously, it's a brutal thing, but I mean, certainly there is an appeal to that. But sports give you this kind of analogy for it, and you get to do that. So what is that? Not a lot of people get to even experience that ever, and I think that's a bummer. I mean, that feeling, that feeling where you break through the line and tackle someone for a loss on a big play, or hit a quarterback and now you throw up the shocker. But that fucking feeling, it's that feeling that Chuck Liddell gets when he knocks someone out. Walk us through how that feels. Like, what is that doing to your body? How is that?
It's crazy. It's different. I don't know, because I'm super lucky that I've been able to, I've been playing football since the second grade. I'm 28 now. I've been playing for forever. So I don't think you can get I'm lucky enough to play football where you get that physical aspect. If you think about it, every other, UFC, fighters, that's the most physical you can get, basically. But, if you think about just basketball, baseball, they can have some unbelievable, you get to compete head to head. You watch some of the old school Jordan stuff and LeBron now, they're competing, but I don't think they get that physical aspect you can get from football. I mean, we have, it's crazy. We have, I have linemen every single play that are 330 pounds not only trying to knock your head off, they're trying to take your legs out and do stuff. So when you can find a way around that and beat them and actually blow someone up, I mean, that's the best thing about football. You get to blast people, and I don't know. It's hard to describe. I think if people have asked me, what does it feel like, when you just know you got someone, like how you've planned it, you've practiced it your whole life, and you just it was a pure, perfect hit. I'm like, God, nothing. You don't feel anything. You're obviously pretty jacked, and you feel like you can do anything right after that. That's why it's a big thing, a mental part that I've tried to help with, playing and tried to get better at, is if you've seen it, if you watch football players, you watch and say just a receiver, for example, if he doesn't get to catch a ball in the first half, sometimes, it's tough. Your confidence isn't shot, but they're down, and you might see them start yelling at the quarterback. Same thing for defensive guys. If I can come out there in the first or second series and get a good shot on a guy, make a few tackles, make a play, it's almost like the rest of the game is downhill, and you're playing downhill, and you can just you can kind of catch fire that way. And I've tried to. Sometimes the game's just not set up that way, where you're not going to make any plays early on, and so a big struggle that I have is I try to focus on is just figuring out, it's going to come. I don't need to go out of my way to try to make a play. The plays are going to come, and if something doesn't happen the first quarter, I'm just trying to stay positive and figure it out, and say all it takes is one big shot on a guy where I can stand over top of him after he's struggling to get up. That can change the whole game and change everything. So I'm always searching for that. I think every single play. Yeah. And it's fun that way too. And you never try not ride the roller coaster of ups and downs of a game, because there's always going to be good plays and bad plays, and you just got to find a way to stay with it.
There's a lot of elements in there. I mean, I think it's weird how sports go like that. It's almost like there's a certain, they call it the zone or whatever, but it's a certain kind of mix of belief and confidence. I mean, the power of belief, the older I get, the more experience I get, I realize everything ultimately comes down to belief. And belief can actually manipulate the way events unfold, or manipulate how you react to them. And in doing so, it'll almost permeate like an entire game. To a certain degree. Like, I remember there's been a couple moments where I've seen it live, happen. I saw Vince Young in the Rose Bowl, that's when he was playing USC. You could just feel that his presence and his belief, he was so sure that he was going to win, that the game just made that happen. Like, the game unfolded for him. I saw Dwayne Wade do that in the finals, the first championship they won against Dallas. You could just see him. And of course, other players have done it on TV, but when you're there, you can almost feel it, And I'm sure there's been games too where you felt that same thing, where it's like, whatever happens, that you're going to get to the ball, and that the bodies are going to move in the right way, and you're just going to be there to fucking crush and just to shut a team down.
Yeah, it's as a player, there's definitely been times when you feel like that, whatever, you can call it the zone, whatever, but I've seen it happen a lot too. When our offense is on the field, I sit there and watch like a fan. I don't sit on the bench. I stand on the sidelines and watch, and I'm just in awe sometimes of what, a guy like Aaron Rodgers can do, and he's been in the zone quite a few times over the last 3 or 4 years, and it's fun to watch. You can just see and feel his confidence over the whole team, and a guy like that's leading your team, which could be any sport, but I've seen it firsthand when he's on fire, which is most games. and how he feels, and you watch him throwing touchdowns and just seeing how confident he is and celebrating that, the whole team feels that goes through everybody. And I think that's how that can be any leader of a business. If your CEO's like that, if he's a cool, positive, confident dude, it's gonna trickle down. If he's a terrible guy that no one wants to be around, and he's bitter, everyone's been around those bitter, negative guys, it's gonna trickle down too. So I've just tried to surround myself with people that I enjoy being around, that kind of keep you up and tell you the truth, and not guys that are just going to sit there and complain about the world.
Yeah, that's that. But even on a more subtle level, obviously people, not to be around those negative people. But even like, let's say myself in the CEO position and on it, now we have 22 employees or something like that. And, there's days where I'm really kind of fired up and confident and on my shit, and I'm just like, things are just happening, and you can get that energy, and then it gets contagious, and then other people start making deals happen, things happen. And then other times I'll be more kind of reclusive, the stress will get to me, and I'll just kind of stay in my office and be stressed. And it's like the whole company's productivity level, like everything just kind of drops a little bit, and I'm like, shit, like I gotta fucking pull this thing around,
How do you train them? Not train them, but I'm just asking, like, how do you teach them to do that on their own, to not bank on you, because I'm sure as it grows and there's times you're in town, you're out of town, whatever. How do you kind of set them on their own path? See,
everybody can be a leader in that regard, so it doesn't have to be, there's other people that can pick up the flag. They don't have to rely on me, and they have their own moments, and we have a few just rocks, and I'm sure every team has this, every army's had this, just people who go out and are just killing it every day. Attitude is awesome. They're just taking care of business, and they are kind of like the anchors, you know. And then there's a couple of people who are more kind of streaky, and so you got to ride them when they're hot. And when they're hot, you pile it on. But when they're a little off and things are off, you can rely on your rocks.
Okay.
And that's kind of how it goes. But for me, so much is still dependent on myself. I know I have to be conscious of how my attitude and energy is, and same with you. I mean, you're one of the leaders out there on the field, but Aaron Rodgers, all these people in key leadership positions, you gotta push that out because it's contagious.
Yeah, that's something that I've tried to figure out more even this year. Like I grew up, just whatever. I'm not from. Everyone thinks you're from Ohio. Oh, you grew up on a farm. You have cows. No, I don't even know anybody that grew up on a farm. I'm from the suburbs of Dayton, Ohio, a place called Centerville, and awesome place. But I grew up a super shy kid, the youngest of three boys. My two older brothers, I just chased them around. Wanted to be them my whole life, and still look up to them. But I grew up just super shy and almost holding everything in. Like I was really passionate about things and everything, but no matter what, I hit the game-winning shot in a basketball game, and I'd just walk off the court, whatever. And my parents were like, man, why don't you celebrate, And I'm like, oh, I did. I high-fived a few teammates or whatever. Like I've never been able to kind of go out there and do stuff like that. And this year I've almost just said, whatever. I'm sure everyone's heard it. To truly be like your best at something, you just got to let it all go. Let go of what might happen. Whether you win or lose, it doesn't matter. You just gotta, the whole process. You just gotta focus on that. And it might sound corny or whatever, but that's just kind of I figure I'm 28. That feels really old. I feel like I'm 15 still, and so I think it's about time I just let it go and I don't care. It doesn't matter. It's true. Like.
You have to let go of the outcome.
Exactly. To be your best, you definitely have to let go of everything. You can't sit there and worry about good plays, bad plays, even in life. And so I'm trying to still in the process, always every day, but to figure out, just let it go, man. Who cares? I was the king of going with my wife to a wedding, and she loves dancing. She's out there in the dance floor going crazy, and I'm just posted up in the corner like, no, I'm not a dancer. No, I'm just straight. I'm over here doing bicep curls, push-ups, just being an idiot. And I still am that way mostly, but I still try to let it go a little bit more and enjoy things. I'm always enjoying it, but I guess it doesn't always show to other people, and I have to explain that to people sometimes. And I'm just trying. That's what having cool, diverse friends like you guys, like you and different people is. I think they help bring that out of you. You can't if all my buddies were just like me, it'd be stupid. We'd be so boring. We'd just sit around watch Storage Wars and do nothing. So you got to get out there and do stuff.
Yeah, the funny dancing is not to go too far down a rabbit hole about dancing, but it was such a part of tribal life, back in the day, and at some point, for a dude to dance, it got gay, like in a lot of and I've always been dancing it up my life, but I never really subscribed to that. But that's became like the cool guys were just not really into it, and I guess I don't know. It was just kind of a weird thing. I mean, you have an unbroken history of thousands of years where everybody would play, except for in Islamic cultures where they'll throw rocks at people who try to dance and have fun. But that's a whole new level of fucked up. But on the tribal level, some people could make the music. You either made the music or you danced to the music.
Yeah.
And I think that's partly what's in us all. And I think, I think there's something to that. I mean, we just had the pleasure of watching your cute little young daughter, put on some music. She's 2 years old, I guess, right? Too.
Yeah, 2.
And she's just dancing it up, I mean,
yeah, she doesn't give right.
Fuck what she looks like. She's just killing it.
The more people look at her, the more she feeds into that energy and starts clapping and going crazy. And I think that watching her has taught me a lot. She's awesome. I don't care. If I was, if you're self-conscious about things, whatever. I go in public. It's hard for me. I'll walk through a store carrying her, and I never figured out until I was, a dad. But man, it's weird. I'll sit there and kiss on her and, run down the aisles with her at stores and just do stuff that you could never see yourself doing as a kid. Even that high school meathead. I never could see that myself being that guy. But I don't care at all. I think that is one thing that helps, at least for me, having kids, have another one on the way coming in a couple months, and that helps me. I learn a lot from a little 2-year-old that can only say a few words. So it's pretty cool to see.
Yeah, I think we can. I mean, at some point, we become self-aware, and people are just so easy to make fun of other people and put them down and shit. It's such nonsense. I wonder why kids are like that. I don't know if they have to be like that. If all kids back in the day, imagine the fucking Navajo tribe where the 6-year-olds looking at the 5-year-olds being like, these fucking kids, they fucking can't dance for shit. They suck. And they just, no, they weren't. I don't think, but somehow in schools and stuff, I don't know if it's a product of, it just seems like momentum has gotten out of control that way, and it just kind of feeds a little bit. But really, expression of oneself, I think, is it's important. You got to be able to just kind of let it loose, and that's not socially enforced in hardly anything now. But I think that's one thing. If I had to, override some remedies that I think would be good, I think bringing back that kind of tribal element where you all get around a fire and you play some music and get a little loose, drink a little bit, and dance to some drums. And none of those dances look great. They're just jumping around and fucking. But when you're feeling it, I think I don't know. At least for me, that's something pretty cool. And then of course you have that element. You're at least a type of guy that's getting to express the kind of warrior archetype, which I think is. You see so many men who never get to express that kind of, I am going to, apply my physicality towards dominance. Yeah. And that's such an instinct that we all have. And I think suppressing it, so many people try to suppress it. And even, the quote, spiritual people try to deny it and ignore it. Like it's not there, or it's not important, or you're a meathead if you're trying to express it. I don't agree with that bullshit. I think it's part of our birthright, and I think it's unfortunate really that, unfortunate and fortunate in some ways. In some ways it's progress, but in some ways, it's good we have sport to be able to kind of express that.
Big time. I 100% agree with that. It's like a running joke with different guys on my team that I've played with, my whole life. My wife will joke in the off season. She's like, "Man, when are you guys going to start practicing again?" She's like, "You guys are so physical in the off season. Like when I don't get to hit people on the field, and that sounds terrible and super meathead." But not like I'm hitting her, but you're just wrestling or whatever. Yeah, you know what I'm saying.
We get it.
And my wife said she's a strong girl, so she can stand her own with anyone. I feel bad if she ever gets in a fight with a girl because she can punch like a guy.
Yeah.
And but she's like, gosh, I just can't wait till you guys put the pads on and practice again. She's like, you're just a bull in a china shop rolling around here, running into things, breaking things in the house. And I think it's weird. It's in there, and I think it's in everybody regardless. You could be 5'1", 120-pound guy, but I think it's in there and just at different levels. And I'm lucky enough to let that out now. And I've actually thought about that when I'm done playing. I'm like, man, what am I gonna? I'm trying to find things that I'm gonna compete in and be able to express that and do that. And I'll always work out. I love to work out,
for sure.
So I can do that. But I've thought of crazy things like, man, maybe I'll do spearfishing. Maybe what can I compete in? You know? Let me free dive and see how deep I can go. Like, I love the ocean, and I just think of all these weird things, and I'm gonna eventually come up with a few fun things I can compete with.
Well, you've been rolling a little bit too, right? Doing a little jiu-jitsu with your friends with Dan Henderson and the Clinch Gear team, right? So
man, those guys are awesome. They've got me into more MMA stuff, and obviously to listen to Joe's podcast, talking to you, I've got to do just a real little bit of jiu-jitsu and loved it. I was actually out in Colorado working out and went to a guy, and he does that. He does a little bit of everything. The guy actually fights, and he said, "Well, what do you want to do? You know, most people want to come in and do striking and just punch the bag and hit the mitts." I'm like, "No, man, let's just do an hour of jiu-jitsu." So we just rolled around for an hour with this guy, and he had 2 of his students come in who just killed me. You know, these high school kids.
Did they? Though?
Well, the thing is, I could kind of toss them around a little bit. But it didn't matter. They'd always catch me with something, you know. And I'd tell them, like, don't hold back, man. If you can, you know, choke me out, do it. Or if you got something.
Did they get you?
Oh yeah, 100%.
How big were they?
The one kid was probably like 180 pounds. The other kid was probably 195. Like, they weren't small, but they weren't real big kids. But I don't know what belt they were. They didn't matter. They were these guys. They opened my eyes. Yeah, and I would try to work all the different moves they would show me and the counters and everything, and it didn't matter. They were countering my counters, boom, locked up. They're choking me out, and I was telling them, just go for it, man. I'll tap when I'm if I'm going out, and it was a good thing out there too. It sounds funny, but the guy that was teaching me, he's like, well, you need to know what it feels like to get choked, you know, and then you can choke me and stuff like that. So he's like, he would choke me and then make me tap, and all right, it's good. This is good to know. I need to know how it feels, and that was actually cool to see. I needed that, and I think I just want to get into it even more. It's a little bit of a balancing act of getting into enough where you're not really jeopardizing getting hurt playing football because if you get hurt off the field, they can do a lot of, they can take a lot of your money here in the NFL. Yeah. So I'm trying to find a balancing act there, but I think that might be something I could get into even more and give me something to work towards, you know. And I just think we all need something to work at and work towards. You know, even if it's not, you know, trying to make a ton of money when I'm done, I want to be working towards something and trying to always compete with people.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu's that kind of unique element of combat sports where, I mean, barring an injury, which you can get playing basketball, you can get playing volleyball, barring an injury, you can go full out and not hurt each other.
Exactly.
You know? Like fight to death without injury, which is no other thing has been able to do that. I mean, that's why if people could sword fight to death without injury, you fucking guarantee there'd be full armor still, you know?
Yeah, what I thought was awesome, these kids were, I think they're maybe 19, 20 years old. I just couldn't believe how respectful, and so they were like, so we'd sit there fighting, bam, bam, they'd catch me with an arm bar or whatever, and then we're done, you know, they're sitting there bowing and say, oh, thank you, and after, they were just and that's kind of that culture, and that's what I've told my wife, I want to get my daughter into something, I don't know if it's jiu-jitsu or taekwondo, whatever it is, I want her to get in that culture of kind of respecting your elders, you know, treating everyone with respect, and I think it could just, especially with how things are going, man, it's kind of weird with how, I think, I don't know how exactly the generations are going, but I think things are a little too easy at some point for some kids, and they're not learning the respect you need for how to treat other people. And I think if I get my kids into that culture, I think it could help them go so far. And not only will they get in that, I need to get in that culture too. I need all the help I can get. Everybody does.
Yeah, I mean, it's kids this generation. You know, I'm a little removed, but I have some sisters and stuff, and you know, I think the way to steer them now, I feel like kids were more like just punks and like jackasses in a generation, maybe a little bit, not quite this one. This one, it's more like they're, you know, they can lean towards being a little too emo, like a little too antisocial, a little too existential, you know, kind of, oh, fuck the world, you know.
Who was it? Someone just said, I'm not taking credit for it, on Opie and Anthony, I think they said hipsters are the new jocks.
Yeah.
Like, that they are like, and which is fine. I believe me, I'm all for the eclectic. I was just out in Seattle actually, like the hipster movement. Walking around with the guitar on your back. I love those dudes. That's cool to see, but it's true. It is kind of a different world. I feel so removed. I'm 10 years removed from high school, but I feel like that was forever ago. I feel like it's a different world now.
Yeah, and all of that stuff though. I mean, you don't see a lot of emo jujitsu guys. You know what I mean? It's like there's some element. It's fine. People can express however they want to express. But there's just some element of faking it. I feel like a little bit.
For sure.
You're pretending that life isn't as fucking magical and awesome as it is. Because you can make it that. You can totally fucking make it that. And love can be awesome. Fucking fighting, whatever it is you can do. All of these elements, sports and competition and art, whatever, everything can be fucking awesome, and it's like denying the awesomeness is faking it a little bit.
For sure.
Just because you don't want to put in the work to get there, and so there's some kind of inauthenticity to it, and I think that's the challenge. But there's also a lot of bullshit in the world too, and we've talked a lot about that. And so it can give people a kind of jaded sense, when all your politicians are fucking liars, and your government's just completely screwing up. I just saw a documentary, which is a must-see, by the way, called You and Me, by this guy. I think his last name's Jarecki. And I don't know, maybe that was a drug war guy. But anyways, it's called You and Me. You can get it on iTunes. And just to see how fucking terrible and bureaucratic and useless and, awful the UN is. We're not even aware of how, completely, detrimental some of these UN efforts have been, and how they've had so many opportunities to stop senseless murders and just have failed to do it because of, this crazy bureaucracy. In this world, I think it is easy to get, a little jaded and stuff like that. And so, I think that'll be the challenge. You're a father now, father one, almost going to be a father two here coming up. Mm-hmm. And I think that'll be it. I mean, obviously your family's great, and that's the most important factor. But, the world at large, unless some things change, but things have to change. You know what? The world that, your kids, Lennon and Hendrix, are going to grow up in is going to be a much different world than ours. It has to be. We can't continue on this trajectory. So
we'll see, man. Yeah, hopefully I can have a good positive influence, but that's a thought of mine every day. I'm thinking, because they're going to go to school, we've heard all about how kids can treat kids. I have a daughter, so I'm super protective of her, and you know how bad girls can get, especially middle school, high school. Sure. Just whoever the cool girls will just pick on all the girls that they don't think are. And if you look back now, obviously I'm not trying to knock anybody, but most of the people that were really cool in high school aren't so cool anymore if you think about it. All the big tough guys. And I kind of just stayed to my own, had my little group of friends in high school and whatever. I thought I was cool. I definitely wasn't. But, those guys that were running around, knocking guys' books out of their hands. If you check up on them, usually most of them aren't running,
right.
aren't running companies and killing it. So it's just it's a weird world.
All that stems from insecurity anyway.
Of course, which I think almost everything
which ultimately will defeat them. Even if it's temporarily props them up and people buy their shit, eventually they're going to stop buying and it's going to be sell, like fucking Jim Cramer. Sell on that dude, and he's going to be fucking doing something stupid.
What time?
Yeah, so we got
money to roll.
8:30.
Yeah, I gotta roll.
About time. So we're gonna have to wrap it up here for now. We may continue a little bit more, but appreciate this. Mr. Hawk here has some family duties here. Got a pregnant wife and some beautiful kids to take care of. So we'll let him wrap this up and kick some ass tomorrow against the Cardinals.
Yes, sir, man. Thank you.
It's gonna go down.
It's been fun. I love the podcast.
Right on. Well, we may continue this. We may not. Yeah. If not, I'll be back again to wrap this up myself. So thanks a lot, brother.
No problem.
All right, here we are with a little second segment, a little wrap-up show with the powerful AJ Hawk, fresh off a victory against the Cardinals. It was a fucking blast to be out there. Really appreciate everything this weekend, man. And wanted to take a chance to touch on a few things that we didn't get to in the first segment. Really, at the Warrior Pull-Up Podcast, we try to glean some positive examples and some messages that people can latch onto, because it's fucking hard enough out here to stay motivated, to find the right path, to stay on it. And, I think you're a great example of someone who's, taken an opportunity, stuck with it, had the motivation to keep going and find, a pinnacle of success. So, what are some of the messages and tactics and techniques and things that you've used to keep yourself motivated, straight through concurrently, without getting burned out? And, maybe sometimes you do get a little burned out and things get tough, but, what's kind of your idea as you move through to the peak that you're at now?
That's an awesome, very deep question.
That's it. We don't fuck around. We just go right off the bat. We just go straight from hanging out to just going deep.
There's no completely right answer, I'd say, obviously, with anything. But I'd say the one thing with me, at least personally, that I can speak of is I just always want to be authentic to myself and to stay. I've said it. It sounds very cliche and whatever, but stay the course. Whatever my plan was. Like from the outside looking in, I think a lot of times, at least with athletes or actors, anything, if you look at it and say, man, that dude's got it all, everything's going awesome, it's just every day to day their life is amazing, there's no struggles, and I think that's the furthest from the truth. I mean, I think, at least I can speak for athletes, we feel very lucky, but from being around athletes my whole life, I feel like guys go through big time day-to-day struggles.
Yeah.
And things definitely don't go as you planned, I think. And I've definitely faced a bunch of adversity throughout my career. And the only thing that I've learned from that, or the main thing, is that if I stay the course and I stay with what I feel like got me here and got me, my foundation, like I talked about earlier, with just throwing up weights 3 to 4 hours a day and staying with it and never compromising and staying consistent, that eventually things will work out. Sometimes it's hard to see, I think, in the short term. You can. It's true. If you look around, you can turn yourself into a negative thinker. It's really easy. You can see a guy that you feel like isn't selling out, isn't doing the right things, and he's having some short-term success, or she's having some short-term success and doing things right. But eventually, I feel like it all evens out. And
but maybe they didn't. They know themselves they didn't quite earn it.
Yeah, and I think it's not on us to look at that as a negative. I think we should be happy for them, regardless if you feel like they didn't do it the right way or whatever. And if you you don't have to block it out, but you're aware of that and you use it, and you find a way to use anything as positive energy, man, it can be huge. And I've just tried to use that regardless. Say I'm pissed off, I'm mad at anybody, coaches, teammates, players, whatever happens. If I can find a way to harness that, man, if you think about it, that negative energy that we have at certain times, it's super powerful. And if you can find a way to harness that and turn it into positive, man, it's awesome. And I've had some instances where that has happened for me, and it's that's kind of where I'm trying to go from here. And it's definitely a battle, but I'm trying.
So it sounds like, if we're going to sum this up, it sounds like you're saying, have a vision of where you want to go. And, when you have that vision, realize the small steps that it's going to take to get there. And regardless of the adversity, regardless of what's going on, for you, it's putting the time in the weight room, in your training, always following through on the little steps. Have a vision of the future, where you want to go, and then relentlessly follow through on the little things that are going to get you there. Regardless of what you're feeling and what you're thinking, that's a step. And then beyond that, take the opportunities to harness the energy. If it's, take the opportunity to get motivated from whatever thing that you can find and add that as fuel to your fire. Would you say that's a fair way to kind of sum it up? Or
I would definitely, I think that's a fair way. But one thing that I've had an issue with in the past is when people tell me, "Well, I have a chip on my shoulder, so I'm gonna play hard. I'm gonna work hard."
Right.
I don't believe in that. I do. I understand that you can be mad, you can be upset if you feel like you've been, you didn't get a scholarship coming out of high school or things like that. But I don't exactly know what that means when you say you have a chip on your shoulder. I think we all have something to prove to ourselves, and I think the thing that I've learned is I don't have anything to prove to anybody but myself, and regardless, if you're in the public eye at all, no matter what you're doing, there's going to be people that are going to try to knock you down. That's fine. And I think you have to I think you can actually use that as positive energy, even if they're coming at you negative and say whatever. Who cares? It might sound new age or whatever, but I think if you can just find a way, man, it's all, It sounds terrible. I hate that I'm saying it, but
but
I'm sure you've heard
some of these things are just truths.
I'm sure you've heard people say, "Oh, it's all energy, man. You just need to harness it." I understand that sounds kind of hippie and whatever, but it's true. Like if you can find a way to turn that into use that for your favor, the opportunities are endless. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned over the last, even honestly, year or 2 years is to try to enjoy it, try to have fun, because I think all of us are stuck in kind of, if you let it get to you, it can be a stressful situation. I honestly don't feel any stress with what I'm doing in football, and I think a lot of people do feel stress, and I'm just trying to have fun. I mean, I get to play a game for a living. It's awesome. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, you can get definitely wrapped up in the small stuff, but I think one of the interesting things you were saying there is to not to be your own judge of how you're performing, and I think that was actually something that Bodie Miller was telling me as well. I went through a patch here actually where, I got a little bit of notoriety from the Joe Rogan podcast, and I actually had the first, a lot of people who respected what I was saying, but the first people who seemed to legitimately hate me, like straight up. And I was like, whoa, what is this? And it really bummed me out because I wasn't used to it. And he was letting me know, and he, if you're not aware, after the Olympics in Salt Lake, he had, I guess there's a Q score that different agents use, which is like your popularity score at the time. And he had a worse score than O.J. Simpson after the Olympics, where he was, he was partying in Torino. It's not Salt Lake. He did well in Salt Lake. It was Torino. He was on the cover of all these magazines and just got a little disenfranchised. And really, people turned on him. And that's where he kind of said, listen, you got to be the judge of yourself. When you've put out everything that you can, you've laid it out there, and when you have it, and to use that. And then I think that's an important thing to know is, not get caught up in what other people are saying, how they're judging you. You know your own performance. You know when you've laid it on the line. You know when you've done a great job. And ultimately, you have to be the judge of that. But that doesn't mean that you can't, harness the energy that you're feeling from everybody else and kind of utilize that as well. So I think that's certainly a balancing act. But a lot of us aren't athletes, for profession. Most of us aren't, and we don't have our paths aren't as clear. So I think for all the rest of us, for me, it took till I was 29 to really know exactly what path I was in. For me, it was a matter of just keeping the faith that something would break if I kept my morals and kept my values and kept on the grind. But for you, and I think for athletes, it's a unique situation where you get on a set of train tracks and you know it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the advantage. But I think we can all kind of learn from that and find our own track. Whatever track that is, and if it's not a track, at least keep to our own code. And I think that's one thing that I've learned about you is you have a great code about you. You have a sense just how you treat people, how you do people. For those of you who haven't known AJ or whatever, he's he's going to be the type of guy that goes out of his way to sign everything from the fans and be there for his teammates and do everything he can. How do you think that's kind of played into your success? It seems like you're guided by a code, almost like a bushido, like they would say from the old samurai days. But what would you say to that? How did you form that, and how important is that to you?
I don't know exactly how it was formed, but I've never really thought about it in depth. Like how you, if you talk to you, you'll come up with all kind of ancient terms for it,
right?
Ancient warrior terms, and make it sound amazing. But honestly, I don't know. Like I think I know I keep bringing this back to my daughter, but believe me, I'm obsessed with her, so it's tough. But when I tuck her into bed at night, every night I tell her, obviously I tell her I love her, and then I'll tell her, I'll say, respect yourself and treat others with respect. And that's honestly that's all that really matters. I try to tell her, and I try to live by those things, and try to teach her what I live by, and not just respect others, but I've seen too many times where people will try to, they're not being, it comes back to the thing about being authentic, hey, I'm going to sit here and say hi to people, but I really think that I'm above these people. Hey, yeah, they're coming to see me.
Putting it on a
and they even know deep down that they're doing it because they feel like whether they're earning points towards heaven or things like that. I believe me, I've had a lot of talks with guys about that, and I don't feel like I don't want to be that guy ever. I feel like it's just for whatever reason. I think I'm real lucky that I've had a great upbringing. Both my parents did a good job of that. They always treated me with respect and taught me. I think I watched them and I watched my older brothers, and I've been lucky, you know, and I think it's been an easy transition into that. But for whatever reason, I don't think anybody can feel, no matter what. Like, I understand, I play football. We get paid a lot of money to play a game, but it's not like anybody, if someone's making $5 million a year, it doesn't make them better than a dude making $25,000 a year, you know? Yeah. So, and I think I've learned that over the years, and I've always kind of felt that way. So I never felt like, I don't care what it is, it's the same thing we were talking about earlier here before we turn this on. If you look at, I've seen different situations where people will look at people, whether it be a musician, a political guy, and they're just in awe, you know, just freaking out, like, oh my God. And they're looking at them like zombies, and they can't even fathom that they're in the room with the guy. I'm like, you know, this person's a human just like you, you know? So I think we're all in the same boat, you know, regardless of how some of us have been luckier than others, you know, and got on a better path, whatever. Some people, you know, work harder than others. And I think it's just, it's a weird thing. And I don't know, man. I don't know if I never sat down and wrote down, like, I'm going to treat people like this. I'm going to sign on. It just kind of
came naturally to you.
For whatever reason, yeah. And I feel, I guess you'd say I feel, I don't know, I can't really put my finger on it, but I feel like nobody is above anybody and whatever. And that might sound fake, that might sound inauthentic, but that's the only thing I care about in life is being authentic to myself. And I don't care about anything else, honestly. I'm gonna treat my wife right, I'm gonna treat my kids right, and then be authentic. And if I'm authentic, then guess what? I think the rest of them will be too.
I think that's extremely valuable, you know, lesson to take in. And it's actually it's not always that easy to be completely authentic, you know, and that's why I've mentioned the psychedelic experience as being one of the best ways to actually show you a mirror of yourself and say, what is real? You know, what is the real part of me? What is the core, essential, you know, part of me? You call it your God self, you could call it your true self, but basically the core you. Mm-hmm. And it's so easy to lose that. You know, I think, as I mentioned before in the earlier part of this, I think you're one of the rare individuals that's just kind of managed to always stay without getting too far off on that. And it's certainly admirable. But for the rest of us, you know, occasionally we need those checks and balances, a little time in the flotation tank to go over it.
But one thing I have learned, I don't want to interrupt you, but one thing I've definitely learned from talking, I think a big thing and you know, kind of growing as a person is talking to people in all different types of, you know, walks of life. It's that everybody has the same problems, man. You know, like the same issues that I'm having. Like, oh man, I'm sitting in meetings all day. You know, I'm getting impatient. Whatever. Believe me, the same guys working a sales job at a business are having this. We're all having the same issues. No one it has different issues than the other, and I think people always think the grass is greener. And I've talked about this with some friends before. They think a guy like, and I don't want to single a guy out, like Brad Pitt. You think about it. So he had issues with Jennifer Aniston. So say they broke up. He's thinking, man, what would it be like? You know what? He's probably having similar issues with Angelina Jolie that he had with her. Like, it's the same thing. Like, the grass isn't always greener, and we all have the same issues, and it's just up to us to kind of figure it out. And I think that's the thing that I've figured out over the past. And like I said, whenever I speak to, every once in a while I go back and speak to like my high school football team, or I've gone back to Ohio State and spoke to them. And the first thing I'll say to these guys, I'll say, listen, I don't have any answers. I say, I don't know anything really. And I'll say biggest thing,
what Socrates himself said.
I'll tell them, I used to get so annoyed when I used to sit here and I'll have someone come in and they'll speak down to me, you know, and tell me this is what's the truth, this is what's real. And so I'll try to keep it up front and say, listen, I don't know anything, man. All I know is what's helped me in the past, and then I'll try to give them a tiny bit of knowledge. But listen, I don't have any answers.
We all got to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly, you know? And that's why I'm hanging out with guys like you that aren't the typical Midwestern Ohio guys. You know, you're going down to Peru and getting tattoos on the ribs,
expanding the horizons a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is. I've really been blessed in the past few years to hang out and meet a lot of, unique individuals, and, everybody has their own different keys to success, and you begin to see how and why people got to where they're positioned. Like, Joe Rogan, for example, I got to spend a lot of time with him when I went and took that trip to Brazil for the fights. And he has like a tireless energy. He's just relentless. He's just on it, always thinking. If anything happens, that could be a joke. Really? That could be a tweet. That could be something to talk about on the podcast. But it was actually one of the cool things to see was actually finally when the machine just had enough, and he just passed out in a taxi on the way to the fight. He was just like, okay, I got to go to sleep, And it was like, okay, at least he is human, because I marveled at how much kind of energy he could put out. And, but at the end of the day, we're all just, machines that we can kind of feed the right things, both from the love that we get from the people around us, the energy that we have around us, the food we put in our body, the thoughts we think. All of that is going to help make the machine run and get on the right track and find the path to success. And everybody has a slightly different way, but everybody has their own challenges as well, and it's just a matter of doing your damn best and being authentic and seeing where you can go. And I think that's the key, but you got to find your own way. No one's gonna, if anybody tells you, they have the path,
don't follow them.
Don't follow them.
I think it's a constant fight as well against falling in line and being a robot, because I know we're trying to wrap this up, but yeah, it's true. It's very easy to be a robot and just follow the leader, and I think that's kind of what society wants you to do. That's what if people there's a couple of people that want the power, guess what? They're going to want 20,000 people to follow them. And that's why I think a guy like you, say you're running on it, I know you don't want a bunch of yes men sitting under you, telling you exactly what it is. Yeah, and I think when you see things fail, it's usually because there's one or two guys up front, and all they care about is yes men that won't question them, won't do anything. And I think it's always good not to question in a negative way or to be bitter about it, but to say, well, is there a way can we be more efficient? Can we be better? And I'm always thinking that. Believe me, everything I do, I'm trying to be more efficient and get things done. And
most of the time, the person asking that question, can I be more efficient, is yourself. And you got to look back at yourself and just be brutally honest. Like, do not, the last fucking person you should ever lie to is yourself. That's it. Like, don't lie to anybody. Lying is, generally a bad practice, but the very last person you should lie to is yourself. And I think a lot of us delude ourselves, either make rationalizations or tell ourselves things that are just a little bit off, to let ourselves off the hook. Or maybe it's the other way. Maybe we're too hard on ourselves. Maybe we don't give ourselves credit when we deserve it. So everything seems kind of overwhelming and overbearing. But try and find that true, fair, self judgment. And when you're kicking ass, enjoy it. Be in the moment, live it. 100%. You gotta get the good. You gotta get the nectar out of life as well. Not just the struggle. I think, and actually, you mentioned the tattoo on my ribs, and it's kind of that for me. The two sentiments that I wanted to get was it's a samurai and a cherry blossom tree, and the samurai is in mid battle, two swords in his hand, fighting, struggling. And I think that's an important part of life. But the other part is the iconic cherry blossom tree, which is life is transient. If we don't enjoy it, if we don't enjoy the flowers blooming and life happening around us, what the fuck is the point for the struggle? You gotta be there and enjoy the things, and take that breath as you walk out on Lambeau Field and feel the energy and enjoy the electricity as you crunch somebody into the grass. Whatever it is. Obviously, those are the extreme examples, but as simple as enjoying, seeing your daughter dance around the kitchen and hanging out with friends, doing all that. You got to take the time to enjoy, and then when it's time to go, saddle up and fucking give it hell.
Man. I'm
Give
with
it
you.
hell.
I never knew that about your tattoo on your ribs. I never examined it.
Yeah, well, I tend not to strip down for my boys. Be like, yo, check this out, bro.
I'm glad you. It makes sense now, though. It really does. But yeah, you're 100% right. People talk about, oh man, those were the good old days. Like, no, man, today
is the good old days.
And that's why I try to tell people. People always, I'm 28 now, and people always talk about, man, I loved college, man. I'd love to go back to college. I'm like, you know what? College was awesome. I had a great time. But no, I don't want to go back to college. Like, and they always, I feel like that's a big thing, people talking about, and I guarantee you, and I know for a fact when you talk to those people, when they were in college, they were thinking about, well, when I'm done with college and I got a sweet job
looking forward,
I'm making $150,000 a year, and I'm like, no, see now, but you're looking back wishing you were there. So just enjoy where you are now, and it's everything's gonna be all right. And I've been victim of that too. Like I remember when I was playing football in college, we had a very close core group of friends that we were all together, and man, we would just have a great time. Every time we'd be on the field together, we would have such a great time, and then off the field we'd have a great time as well, hanging out. But I don't think I really soaked it up enough. I think I took it for granted, and I think
that's one of my regrets too. I can look back at college and I was like unhappy, and a lot of the time I had a great time too. I had my fun, but I remember being like tortured so much of the time. Like, what the fuck was I worried about then? Really? I look back now, I was like, just have fun. I was worried about what career am I going to have? How's this going to work out? Blah blah blah. And just so taking myself away from it. I even took a semester abroad in Australia, and the whole time I was thinking about some girl I had back home, and what I was going to do when I was out. I'm in fucking Brisbane, Australia, and it's beautiful, and it's awesome there. And, I wish I would have enjoyed that more. And looking back, those are pretty much the only regrets I have, is because you learn from all the mistakes, and you get over them. The mistakes aren't even that bad. Yeah. You get over them, you get better. The only thing you ever regret is that you just didn't smile and enjoy and soak it up and stretch those seconds, so that they felt like minutes when you had the opportunity. That's really the only place that regrets come from. It's not from the mistakes, it's from just not being able to soak that up. So I think that's good advice. And another last final piece of advice from me is it's not too late. Like, that's just a form of resistance, Like, a lot of people think, even for me, I was like, when I was 27, I was like, I had my marketing company and I was still figuring it out. I was doing some things for Fleshlight. It's like, oh man, I'm just like, it's getting too late. Like, I don't even know if I was looking at news articles and people starting these, tech companies at 25 and 24. I'm like, oh, I'm 27. Like, what the fuck? What am I going to do? It's not too late. I wasn't ready then. I couldn't have handled what I've had to go through with On It as a 27-year-old. Like, I needed to be 30, to be able to make this step of the journey. And I think Carlos Castaneda has a quote that, it isn't, the things themselves didn't change. What the warrior himself is what changed. When you're looking back at the opportunities the opportunities were always there, but what changed was yourself, and you had to get yourself ready and get everything in line so that both of those could go. So no matter how, what age you're at, I think Pressfield talks about a lot. It's not too late. You can find something, you can find your path. Get after it and give it hell, and you just gotta follow the steps, just be authentic, and enjoy your moments, and good things will come. I think that's it. That's me hopping off the soapbox there. It's the last opportunity here to say it, but I think that's the last bit of advice I can give myself. Any final messages here to help inspire people in this week? In this difficult election week?
This is not my thing, man. Put on the spot to inspire people.
I think you do that anyways, man.
But the only thing that I've said this, I feel like I keep repeating myself in this thing, so I'm going to sound like an idiot, but one of the few things that I've learned is that the truth is just super simple, man. Like, it's honestly, like, if you talk to anybody that's you feel is pretty smart or enlightened, whatever you want to call them, and they try to talk about, you just want to talk about issues you've been going through, whatever, anything that is true. It just makes sense. It's not hard. It's not like we're not building rockets here. It's very simple. Mm-hmm. You know what? Like, honestly, like if you want things to go well, you find a way to surround yourself with positive people, think positive thoughts, and just be a good dude. And I don't. It's very hard to do. Obviously, it's not. It's not like we're talking about super long mathematical equations to be a happy guy, but it sounds very simple and it's very hard to do. And that's the one thing. Like, the truth is just super simple. I don't know exactly how to go about it, but I think it's there. We just got to find a way to get there. And I'm in a constant journey every day. I feel awesome. I'm super happy with where I'm at and my family and everything I'm doing. But like I said, I'm always trying to evolve and be a better dude, better husband, better dad, and better football player. But that's not exactly who I am. I have a long life to live after football. But I'm like I said, I'm trying to surround myself with positive people that are awesome, that like to have fun, and that's I think a huge key. Like you said, if we only have one chance here, why not? Let's have a good time, man. And regardless of what your good time is, everyone has different ideas of a good time, but why not laugh and have fun? And I don't. At least I'm not trying to sound like a hippie, but yeah, make it count, man. Let's do it. And I think I don't want to keep going on this, but one thing that I want to draw back on is. So Aubrey sat with my dad today at the game. I feel like my parents have morphed back into like 22-year-olds, and I haven't even told them, my mom and dad, this yet. But it's funny, 3 boys, grown, college, bam, gone, out of school, whatever. They have 4 or 5 grandkids now, and now I feel like my parents have gone back to when they're 20s, because they're going out with their friends on Friday, Saturday nights. They're hanging out. My dad and my mom seem to be having as good a time as ever, and it's a fun thing to see, because they spent 30 years of their life raising kids, and now we're all gone, and now they get to sit back and hang out with us and have fun and hang out with our friends as well. And it's fun to see. It's really cool. And my wife and I have already thought about that. We said we're already very sad for when our kids are going to be. I've already thought about my daughter. I'm trying to get my daughter to go to Ohio State and live in the house, man. So this has nothing to do with the podcast we're talking about. But what I'm saying is, it's cool to see my parents kind of morph back into kids. Honestly, they really have, and they it's just awesome. It's really fun to see how they're doing. And I think talking to other people, I feel like their parents have done the same thing, and it's really a cool thing to be a part of.
Yeah, it seems like they've kept their heart and mind kind of young and kept it light and not allowed the pressure to grind them down and accumulate. You see these people that are just almost calcified, like petrified humans, where whatever it is, they've allowed to just take hold, and it's just hardened them to a level, And I think that was one thing that's, easy to see about your father, and a great thing to kind of look towards is just, just to keep it light, not to let that stuff accumulate, and that's how you're going to feel young and be young and keep happy. Is just, I can even feel it myself. In the tough times, you get all crunchy and hard. It'd be harder to smile and dance, and maybe that's one of the good things about having kids, is they remind you to.
I saw you at the Derby, man. You're not scared to dance.
Yeah,
You're down at the Kentucky Derby.
I'm not scared of that.
Aubrey doesn't even need a female to dance.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
Solo by himself.
I'm not scared. Well, AJ, this has been a pleasure, brother. We'll have to do this again sometime. Man. I look forward to it. Good luck the rest of the season. We'll all be pulling for you at On It and at the Warrior Poet Project podcast.
That's right. Thanks, man. Had a great time.
Right on. The Warrior Poet Project podcast is brought to you by Onnit.com. That's ONNIT.com. Makers of Alpha Brain, which is a complete balanced nootropic designed to elevate your neurotransmitter levels for optimal focus and brain function, as well as Shroom Tech Sport, which is a cordyceps mushroom-based pre-workout formula designed to improve your oxygen utilization and your cellular energy, 2 important facets for the athlete. Both these supplements are 2 of the game day favorites of Mr. AJ Hawk himself. We also have Hemp Force, which is a delicious chocolate protein mix. It's great for your body and easy to digest, and a bunch of functional foods that are out now and launching shortly, so make sure to check back with On It. Also have our fitness products, kettlebells, battle ropes, and some other things coming down the pipe as well. So please go to onnit.com, ONNIT.com, and when you check out, feel free to use code WARRIOR to save 12% on all of the Onnit made supplements. Also like you to check out our friends across the pond at londonreal.tv. They're putting out a great podcast, so we want to give them our support as well. And finally, if you'd like to go a little deeper into the warrior poet philosophy, read some blogs and poetry, or check out some of my other experiences, please go to warriorpoet.us. That's warriorpoet.us.